The colony lay silent, and the only sign of life was the flicker of fires from where homes once stood. Amid the ashes lay remnants of what was once a human family, an ordinary family on an ordinary planet, now torn apart by a strike that made no sense. Scorched toys, shattered picture frames, and broken walls were all that remained, each item telling a story of lives suddenly and violently cut short. The aliens had left nothing, not a single soul, no survivors. Just destruction. In a distant outpost, Alara and Cade received the news. For them, this wasn't just another mission briefing. The family that had been destroyed had been dear friends, people they had trusted and even loved. Alara still remembered the child's laughter, the warmth of the family gatherings. Cade had been that child's godfather, sworn to protect, even at a distance. Now, nothing could erase that feeling of emptiness, the raw ache for vengeance that had ignited within them. The couple exchanged a look, one that required no words. They were going to do what no one else could, send a message, a permanent one, to the alien royal family who ordered the massacre. The briefing room felt too small to contain the weight of the mission. A general spoke, though his words were a hollow hum in their minds. There was no need to tell them about the alien royal family's fortress, or the extreme risks. Alara and Cade had operated in hostile territories across the galaxy, places few dared venture. They had taken on high-stakes assignments for the human military, but this time, it was personal. And personal missions, they knew, fueled an edge sharper than any weapon. When the briefing ended, they wasted no time. This mission called for stealth, precision, and the ruthlessness they had perfected over years of Black Ops training. They knew it wasn't just about breaking into a heavily fortified alien palace. It was about slipping in and out unnoticed, leaving a scar so deep that the alien royals would never forget. The journey was long, tense, but punctuated by silence rather than words. Each of them clung to their memories, Alara to the laughter and warmth, Cade to the promise he had made when he held the newborn, a silent vow of protection. They knew, without speaking, that this was their only chance to make it right. Their ship glided through the darkness of space, equipped with the latest stealth technology that rendered them invisible to alien detection systems. As they neared the alien capital, they could see it, the sprawling city of steel and light, set against a sky they had never seen before. Its towering spires and winding metal walkways were both beautiful and grotesque, a strange beauty that hid a culture that valued nothing beyond power and control. The capital was heavily guarded, with sentries placed at every corner, and the palace, a hulking mass of alien architecture, sat in the center like a spider in its web. Alara and Cade adjusted their gear, checking their weapons, reviewing escape routes in their minds. They'd practiced for weeks, studying blueprints, memorizing guard patterns, every last detail etched into their minds. They moved as one, barely breathing, every step a calculated risk. They slipped into the shadowed alleys, blending seamlessly, like whispers in the night. Alien guards patrolled in synchronized patterns, their armor reflecting strange, iridescent colors under the dim lights of the capital's night sky. To the aliens, it was an ordinary night, but for Alara and Cade, it was the start of a storm. Alara's hand reached for the first guard, fingers moving with deadly precision. The guard slumped before he could even process a threat, his alien blood staining the ground. She moved on, barely a ripple in the air. Cade, close behind, moved with the same lethal grace, each kill quick and silent. The aliens fell with barely a sound, unaware of the predators moving among them. It was as if Alara and Cade had become ghosts, shadows that brought death without warning. Their path led them deeper into the alien city, where they witnessed scenes that would have unsettled ordinary people. Alien children playing with strange, hovering toys, families gathered in dimly lit courtyards, unknowing, unfeeling toward the pain their leaders had unleashed. Alara felt a pang, a brief reminder of the humanity she and Cade still carried, but then she remembered the colony, the silence, and her resolve hardened. This wasn't about the ordinary citizens. It was about the royalty who had chosen violence over peace. Hours passed as they made their way toward the palace, following the narrow alleyways and hidden paths they'd memorized. With each step, the palace loomed closer, its walls glowing faintly, as if aware of the approach of intruders. The air felt thick with tension, and Elara and Cade exchanged brief, silent glances, the kind only partners with years of trust could share. They reached the outer wall, pressed against the cold stone, waiting for the final moment to strike. Their mission was no longer just a job, it had transformed into something larger, something that felt like a reckoning. Their movements remained calculated, precise. As they neared the palace entrance, they paused, assessing the final barriers between them and their goal. Elara's fingers traced over a hidden access panel, a weak spot in the alien technology that they had learned to exploit. The door slid open, a whisper of metal against stone, and they slipped inside, their hearts steady, their minds focused. In that moment, the memories of the fallen family surged within them, and a fierce determination burned in their veins. Elara's mind replayed the laughter of the child, the warmth of the family gatherings, while Cade remembered the feel of the baby's hand in his, the quiet promise he had made. This was for them, for the family whose only crime had been to live peacefully, for a world that deserved justice. As they disappeared into the palace shadows, the city lay silent, unaware of the storm approaching its heart. They moved like phantoms through the silent corridors of the alien capital. The city was strange, unsettling, alive with lights that pulsed in ways that made no sense to human eyes. Every corner held an alien detail, a glow that seemed to follow their movements, symbols etched into walls that pulsed with some unknown energy. Yet Elara and Cade didn't let the strange allure distract them. They had infiltrated dozens of foreign strongholds before, but this mission carried an intensity unlike any other. As they made their way deeper into the city, each movement felt loaded with purpose, every shadow a calculated risk. They couldn't afford even the smallest mistake. The city's layout had required hours of study, every street, alley, and guard rotation etched into their minds. They wove through back routes, navigating narrow paths that the typical traveler would avoid, finding cover in shadows that clung tightly to the metal architecture. Overhead, neon-lit signs in an alien script cast an eerie glow, shifting between symbols and icons. Beneath those lights, alien citizens moved about, their strange, graceful forms bearing a kind of ethereal detachment from their surroundings. The sight stirred something in Cade, a brief flash of curiosity. But he pushed it down, reminding himself of the destruction those same beings had condoned with silence. Alien guards patrolled in rigid formations, their movements synchronized, almost mechanical. The guards wore armor that shimmered faintly in the dim light, the materials shifting between colors that reminded Elara of oil on water. These were no ordinary soldiers. They belonged to the royal elite, trained to protect the palace and its inhabitants with lethal precision. Elara assessed each movement, eyes sharp and calculating, noting weaknesses in the formations, timing their patrols. They slipped past the first patrol with practiced ease, pressing themselves flat against the cool, metallic walls. The next checkpoint was more challenging. A guard stationed near the palace gate seemed alert, his alien senses finely tuned to his surroundings. Elara exchanged a glance with Cade, a quick, silent acknowledgement that she would take the lead. Her steps were soundless, her breathing steady, each movement precisely calculated. She closed in, a blade flashing in the dim light, and the guard collapsed, his body crumpling noiselessly to the ground. Cade was already moving, covering her as they pressed forward, one obstacle closer to their target. As they made their way deeper, the alien city's structure became even more bizarre. High above, structures twisted and arched, some reaching impossible angles, held together by technology they could only guess at. The air felt thick, tinged with a faint, metallic scent that lingered at the edge of perception. They passed what seemed to be a marketplace, where alien vendors sold wares that defied earthly descriptions, strange, iridescent fruits, metallic objects that hummed softly, fluids that shifted colors as they passed over them. Shrouded in their dark clothing, Elara and Cade moved through the market unnoticed, blending with the shadows and alien throngs. Their path took them through a residential sector, where families gathered around glowing orbs, their faces reflecting an unnatural light. It was an ordinary moment for them, laughter and murmured conversations filling the air, yet the sight struck a chord. Cade could feel the edge of his resolve sharpen, the image of the lost family flashing in his mind. These aliens could laugh, live their lives without worry, while a human family had been obliterated under their ruler's orders. He reminded himself that this mission was more than revenge. It was justice, an end to the silent tyranny of those who had chosen cruelty over peace. The palace gates loomed closer, a massive structure of dark metal adorned with alien insignia that seemed to pulse, alive with some unknown energy. The doors were guarded by a squad of elites, each armed with weapons whose functions they could only guess. Elara signaled Cade, and they watched in silence, studying the guard's rhythm. Timing was everything now. One mistake could mean disaster. When a guard strayed just slightly from his post, Cade moved, dispatching him with brutal efficiency, while Elara took out another with swift, silent precision. Their bodies slipped into the shadows, vanishing like the ghosts they had become. Inside the palace, the air changed. The metallic scent was stronger, sharper, almost acrid. The walls were adorned with murals and tapestries that seemed to move, depicting scenes of the alien royal family in acts of conquest and power. It was a gallery of oppression, a testament to the arrogance and brutality that the alien royalty embodied. As they passed, Elara felt her pulse quicken, the images igniting a fresh wave of determination. The more she saw, the more she understood why this mission mattered, why they had to finish what they had started. Their progress was methodical, each room a calculated risk, every step taken with quiet purpose. They slipped past an inner guard post, where soldiers stood on high alert. Their armor glinted, reflecting the light from the moving murals, casting strange, distorted shadows across the walls. Elara and Cade moved in sync, slipping past without a sound. They knew that these guards were the last line before the throne room. Beyond them lay their target, the place where justice would finally be served. Each corridor seemed to narrow as they approached, the path becoming a gauntlet of traps and hidden alarms that would have ensnared any lesser infiltrators. But Elara and Cade were undeterred, their training honed to a fine edge. They worked as one, disarming traps, avoiding sensors, every movement a study in precision. They passed through a narrow passage, brushing close to a guard who seemed to sense a presence but found nothing. As they moved past, they both felt the tension building, knowing that they were steps away from the confrontation they had prepared for all their lives. The final hallway stretched before them, and with it came a quiet, almost eerie stillness. Elara felt her heart steady, her breath slowing, every fiber of her being focused. This was what they had come for. The lives lost, the colony destroyed, it all led here. Each step brought them closer, each silent breath a reminder of the vengeance that had carried them this far. As they reached the massive doors to the throne room, Cade paused, casting a final glance at Elara. She met his gaze, their eyes saying what words couldn't. This was their moment, and nothing would stop them now. The doors stood before them, a barrier between the past and the reckoning they had come to deliver. Behind those doors, the alien royals waited, oblivious to the storm about to crash down upon them. The doors opened soundlessly, revealing the alien throne room, a vast, dark chamber lit by pulsating lights embedded in the walls and floor. The atmosphere was thick with a sense of power, each detail meticulously designed to intimidate, to remind anyone entering of the absolute control held within these walls. At the far end, the alien royals sat on towering thrones, their forms outlined in shimmering, ethereal hues that shifted and changed with each subtle movement. Their faces held a strange, serene expression, a mixture of indifference and amusement, as if they were almost bored by the presence of the intruders. Elara and Cade stepped forward, their steps measured, every movement deliberate. There would be no words, no demands for justice, only the silent fulfillment of a promise. The royals observed them with a dismissive glance, their expressions hardly shifting, perhaps viewing the intruders as some minor disturbance soon to be dispatched. The alien guards flanked the throne, poised with weapons aimed, each one tense, yet still. It was clear that the royals considered them little more than a momentary amusement, another attempted rebellion to be crushed. Elara and Cade felt a pulse of cold resolve surge through them. This was the arrogance that had condemned an innocent family, the quiet cruelty that they had come to dismantle. Cade moved first, swift and deadly, his blade cutting through the nearest guard before the alien could react. Elara followed, her movements seamless as she struck down another, her focus razor-sharp. In the face of their precise assault, the alien guards faltered, their well-practiced formations breaking as they tried to regroup. It was a scene of controlled chaos. Every strike from Alara and Cade landed with surgical precision, each movement calculated and efficient. They moved as a unit, unbreakable, the years of training and partnership evident in their silent coordination. As the guards fell, one after another, the alien royals began to stir, their serene expressions replaced by something colder, sharper. One of them raised a slender, clawed hand, gesturing with a command that seemed to vibrate through the air itself. The remaining guards regrouped, their weapons trained on the assassins, prepared to defend their rulers with their lives. But Alara and Cade were undeterred, their resolve hardening with each passing second. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to let anything stop them now. The first royal, a towering figure draped in dark, flowing robes, rose from his throne, his gaze fixed on them with a mix of disdain and curiosity. His voice, an unsettling blend of tones, echoed through the chamber, speaking words they couldn't fully understand yet felt as a subtle menace. The challenge was clear, an assertion of superiority, a dismissal of their right to be here. Cade took a single step forward, his eyes never leaving the alien, his stance unyielding, answering the challenge with silent defiance. Without warning, the alien royal raised an arm, and a wave of energy pulsed outward, aimed directly at them. Alara and Cade split apart, dodging the attack with practiced ease, their bodies moving with a fluidity that defied the aliens' expectations. They countered immediately. Alara launched a projectile, her aim deadly accurate, while Cade surged forward, using the distraction to close the distance. The projectile struck the royal's barrier, a shimmering shield that absorbed the impact but showed cracks under the force. A flicker of surprise crossed the alien's face as Cade broke through, his weapon slicing through the barrier with relentless force. The second royal rose, her eyes narrowing, her hands raised as she summoned a strange, blinding light that filled the room. Alara moved quickly, shielding her eyes and shifting to a defensive stance, her mind racing to adapt. But Cade didn't falter. Even in the blinding light, he pressed forward, his focus unbroken, each step bringing him closer to their targets. The alien queen sneered, a look of contempt twisting her features, but there was a hint of fear in her gaze, a recognition that these humans were unlike any they had encountered. In the next heartbeat, Alara found her opening. She launched herself forward, her blade striking the second royal with a force that shattered her defenses, a swift and decisive blow that left no room for recovery. The alien's form wavered, flickering in and out of focus, before collapsing with a hollow sound that echoed through the throne room. The remaining royals exchanged a glance, and for the first time, they looked uncertain, their aura of untouchable dominance cracked by the human's relentless assault. The third and final royal rose, his face twisted in anger and disbelief, his gaze sharp with an intent to kill. He spoke, his voice a guttural command that seemed to resonate through the walls. More guards poured into the room, a final line of defense that separated Alara and Cade from their last target. But they had come too far, seen too much, to let these final obstacles deter them. They moved together, their strikes a flawless harmony of steel and purpose, cutting through the guards with a fierce efficiency that left nothing standing in their path. As the last guard fell, the alien king found himself alone, his throne looming behind him like a cage. He raised a hand, gathering energy for one final attack, but Alara and Cade were already upon him. They moved as one, their weapons slicing through his defenses, their strikes a blend of precision and fury. The alien king's defiance faltered as he realized, too late, the futility of his resistance. In his final moments he spoke again, his voice a whisper of disbelief, as if questioning how mere humans could have shattered the power of his empire. Cade answered with a single, brutal strike, ending the question, ending the reign. Silence filled the room as the alien king's form slumped, his last breath fading into nothingness. Alara and Cade stood amidst the silence, their breathing steady, their expressions unchanging. The mission was complete. The royals who had ordered the massacre, who had condemned an innocent family to death, were gone, their legacy reduced to memories and ashes. For a brief moment, Elara allowed herself to feel the weight of it, the justice they had delivered, the balance they had restored. Without a word they turned, leaving the throne room as silently as they had entered, their steps measured, their purpose fulfilled. The silence was heavy with finality, each step carrying the echoes of a promise kept. They had come to deliver justice, and now, as they walked away, they left behind a kingdom that would remember humanity's wrath for generations to come. They moved swiftly through the dark corridors, retracing the path that had brought them to the heart of the alien capital. The silence left behind in the throne room lingered, but they knew it was only a matter of time before the absence of the royals was discovered, igniting chaos in the capital. Elara and Cade pressed forward, every step synchronized, their senses on high alert for any sign of reinforcements. The alien city around them felt different now, stripped of its former sense of invincibility. Even the towering structures seemed smaller, the once powerful glow from the palace dimmer, as if the city itself knew what had been lost. Moving through the residential sectors, they noticed an unfamiliar quiet. The alien civilians seemed unaware, still gathered around their strange orbs of light, laughing and exchanging soft words in their native tongue. But there was a shift, an undercurrent of unease that rippled through the streets, subtle yet perceptible. News would spread soon enough, and when it did, these streets would be filled with unrest. The power structure they had known, the royals they had revered, had crumbled in a single night, and though they didn't yet know it, their world was already forever altered. As they approached the outer gates, the first sign of pursuit reached them. Alien soldiers, different from the guards they had faced before, leaner, faster, and more aggressive, emerged from side streets and alleys, closing in with determined, relentless precision. Elara and Cade didn't break stride. They engaged without hesitation, each movement swift and decisive, every strike a calculated blend of defense and offense. The soldiers came at them in waves, yet each attempt was met with an unwavering resolve, every challenge met with lethal efficiency. They fought their way to the perimeter wall, the final barrier between them and freedom. Cade spotted a weak point in the wall structure, and with a few precise blows, he created an opening just large enough for them to slip through. The sound of approaching reinforcements echoed behind them, but Elara and Cade didn't falter. They moved through the opening, back into the shadowed alleys that had shielded them upon their arrival. The adrenaline of the escape began to fade as they neared the outer limits of the city, a quiet tension settling over them as they prepared to leave this alien world behind. Once outside the city's perimeter, they activated their communication device, signaling the stealth ship that had brought them here. In minutes, the ship's sleek form appeared above the horizon, its silent engines descending to meet them. Elara cast one last look back at the city, taking in the towering spires, the strange, glowing architecture that now held the ghosts of their mission. They had come as shadows, and they would leave as such, unseen, but their presence would linger, a testament to the cost of arrogance. On board the ship, the weight of the mission settled over them. Cade sat quietly, his hands steady but his gaze distant, processing the events that had just transpired. They had accomplished what they had set out to do, fulfilled the duty that had called to them from the moment they heard of the massacre. Yet now, in the silence of the ship, the cost of that duty felt more profound. They had dismantled an empire's power, changed the course of an entire civilization, and exacted justice for a family that could never be replaced. The mission was over, but the echoes of it would resonate long after they were gone. Elara activated the ship's controls, setting a course for the return journey. The silence between them wasn't one of grief or emptiness. It was a silence born of purpose fulfilled, of the quiet understanding shared by those who have walked the same path and witnessed the same darkness. In that silence there was respect, a shared knowledge of the weight they carried and the lives they had avenged. As they slipped into hyperspace, Cade spoke, his voice a low murmur. He spoke of the child, of the promises he'd made, of the laughter he would never forget. It was a simple acknowledgement, words that held a gravity beyond their simplicity. Elara listened, offering her own memories, her own moments that had driven her forward through the mission. In the quiet exchange, they honored the lives lost, the memories that had fueled their resolve. Their thoughts turned to the message they would send back to the command. It would be brief, precise, a report that spoke only of the mission's success, the elimination of the targets. They would offer no embellishments, no details of the battle or the struggle. The mission had been carried out, the objective achieved, and that would be enough. The rest, the weight and the memory, they would carry with them alone. The ship's systems hummed around them, a steady, comforting sound in the vast silence of space. Alara looked out the viewport, her gaze fixed on the stars stretching before them, endless and distant. In those stars, she saw a reminder of the humanity they had carried with them, the strength that had driven them to cross galaxies, to face the unknown for a single act of justice. It was a small act, one mission among countless others, yet in that moment, it felt significant, a testament to the resilience that defined them. They were returning not just as assassins but as witnesses, as keepers of a memory that would remain etched in their hearts. They had stood against an empire, brought down the untouchable, and reminded the universe that humanity would not be silenced, that they would defend their own even in the face of impossible odds. It was a legacy they had crafted, a legacy that would endure in the quiet places, in the whispered stories that would spread among the stars. As they neared the edge of alien space, Cade reached for a control, activating a small beacon. It was a parting message, a signal to humanity's distant colonies that the mission had succeeded, a promise fulfilled. There was no need for words or fanfare, just a single, quiet signal that marked the end of a journey and the beginning of a memory that would live on. They sat together in silence, the vastness of space stretching around them, the weight of their mission settling into something almost peaceful. In that silence, there was no victory dance, no triumphant cheers, only the quiet satisfaction of justice served, a wrong avenged, and a promise kept. They had entered the alien capital as shadows and left it with a memory that would ripple across the stars, a reminder that humanity's spirit, fierce and unbreakable, would forever endure. As the ship carried them forward back to the place they called home, they closed their eyes, allowing the silence to envelop them. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, a reminder of the countless worlds and countless lives that lay beyond, each one touched by the same resilience, the same quiet strength that had guided them here and would guide them still.